Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of What the is Happening, Quarantine Edition. This is the first time in probably 10 days that I've actually done my hair and put on lipstick, so I'm not gonna lie, I'm feeling pretty good. But let's face it, there are a lot of things that we could talk about today, but I did promise you guys a 3-part series on the candidates, and believe it or not, there is still an election taking place. So let's get right into it. Now, despite an initially wide and diverse field of candidates, the race has narrowed down to just 3: Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders, and Donald Trump. We covered Joe Biden in our last episode, and he's leading the Democratic race by a pretty wide margin. But despite pressure to drop out, Bernie Sanders is still in the race. In many ways, Sanders is more than just a candidate. He represents a movement. I'm sure you've heard his name, but aside from some buzzwords and hashtag feelthebern, do you really know who he is and what he stands for? I'm going to cover some of his policy ideas in this video today with Know Your Vote. So here goes. Who the is Bernie Sanders? Bernie Sanders is a career public servant who's best known for his social democratic policies, which at their core fight economic inequality. He became a political activist in the 1960s, and he first held public office in the 1980s as mayor of Burlington, Vermont. He then served as a U.S. congressman before successfully running to be the senator of Vermont, and he's had this role since 2008. The backbone of Bernie's policies is creating economic equality. Bernie plans to overturn what he calls the massive tax breaks and loopholes for the top 1% and the large profitable corporations. He wants to end them and instead give money back to working people. Some of these policies include establishing a progressive estate tax on multi-millionaire and billionaire inheritances, giving workers an ownership stake in corporate America, democratizing corporate boards, ending too big to fail banks and the too big to fail doctrine, and reinstating the Glass-Steagall Act. Check out for more. For those of you who asked how Bernie would pay for these plans, the answer is through increased taxes on individuals and corporations. Bernie wants to overturn many of the Trump administration's immigration policies. In particular, he wants to pause deportations, stop construction on the wall of the US-Mexico border. He also wants to overturn President Trump's Muslim ban. Now, you've probably heard of DACA. This is the act that allows children of undocumented immigrants, also known as Dreamers, to stay in the US and obtain a work permit. Bernie wants to extend DACA and immediately grant legal status to the 1.8 million young people who are currently eligible and provide administrative relief to their parents. He wants to create a pathway to citizenship for the roughly 11 million undocumented immigrants who are currently living, working, and contributing to American society. Criminal justice reform is also a really major component of Bernie's platform. Bernie wants to ban for-profit prisons. Now, if you haven't heard of those, you should really take a look into them. I've included links below. He strongly supports law enforcement oversight, and he wants to create a database of police use of deadly force, as well as mandate criminal liability for civil rights violations resulting from police misconduct. He would create federal standards for the use of body cameras. And another big part of Bernie's criminal reform plan is to end mass incarceration and excessive sentencing. Key parts of this include abolishing the death penalty, preventing excessive sentencing with the goal of cutting the incarcerated population in half, ending mandatory sentencing minimums, and ending 3 strikes laws. He believes that no one should spend their life behind bars for committing minor crimes, even if they commit several of them. Bernie is a strong proponent of ending the war on drugs and decriminalizing addiction. He wants to legalize marijuana and expunge past marijuana convictions. Then ensure that the revenue from legal marijuana is reinvested into the communities that have been hit the hardest by the war on drugs. He will provide people struggling with addiction with the healthcare that they need by guaranteeing healthcare to all the people through a Medicare for All single-payer system. I've done a few episodes on this, so you guys should check them out if you want to know more about Medicare for All. Finally, he wants to legalize safe injection sites and needle exchanges around the country and support pilot programs for supervised injection sites. Bernie is bullish on fighting climate change and protecting the environment, and he would declare climate change a national emergency. Bernie plans to enact the Green New Deal, which promises to reach 100% renewable energy for electricity and transportation by no later than 2030. This plan, he says, will end unemployment by creating 20 million jobs that are needed to solve the climate crisis. He would directly invest a historic $16.3 trillion towards these efforts, which, according to Bernie, is pretty much in line with the mobilization of resources during the New Deal and World War II, but with an explicit choice to include Black, Indigenous, and other minority communities who were historically left out. Bernie also believes that we need to use our power internationally to lead the world in fighting climate change. This starts with rejoining the Paris Agreement. Bernie has long been a strong advocate for abortion rights. As president, he would fully fund Planned Parenthood, Title X, and other initiatives that protect women's health, access to contraception, and the availability of a safe and legal abortion. He would oppose all efforts to undermine or overturn Roe v. Wade, and he would appoint federal judges who will uphold women's most fundamental rights. He also advocates for a number of policies supporting other aspects of women's rights, such as equal pay for equal work, reauthorizing the Violence Against Women Act, and passing the Equal Rights Amendment. Okay, so that's it for our quick video on Bernie Sanders, but there's a lot more information on his policies on other big issues like education, foreign policy, and defense at knowyourvote.io. It's also worth mentioning that the current health crisis that we're facing, not just in the US, but around the world, is definitely going to have an impact on the issues that candidates choose to focus on in the campaign, and also policy changes. So Know Your Vote and I are also working on putting together a little brief explainer video on the different candidates' responses to the coronavirus, and we hope to get that out to you really soon as well. In the meantime, enjoy this. Go check out Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump coming to you next. Enjoy, stay safe, and happy quarantining.